Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. It's so great to see a lot of familiar names on the line. Happy Election Day to all of our North America customers. I'm glad you guys could join us this morning or this afternoon. We've got a great presentation lined up for you today, talking all about DSML. We've got two all-stars on the line here. As you can see, Karishma and Aiden are here to present to you guys today. So I will be turning it over to them here shortly. As we get started, just a couple of housekeeping. As a reminder, this webinar is being recorded. The recording will be made available to you by tomorrow. I will also send it out in a follow-up email. You will also be able to access the recording on our ibi.com website, as well as our YouTube channel. So those are two additional places that you will have access to the recording, along with my email. If you have any questions for our presenters during the presentation, please utilize the Q&A feature at the bottom of your screen. Karishma and Aiden will be monitoring that and answering those questions for you guys. So don't be shy, submit your questions, and we'll get those answered. And with that, we'll go ahead and kick it off. I have a couple of quick marketing reminders for you guys today, just to remind you guys of what's available to you guys, resources that are out there for y'all. So as I mentioned, today's topic is elevating your analytics game with DSML and WebFOCUS. And as I mentioned, we have Karishma and Aiden on the line, product manager and solutions engineer. So the best of both worlds are here with you guys today. So let's go ahead and dive on in with some updates marketing. So if you guys, most of you know, we announced the 9.3 release this year back in April. So if you haven't had a chance to check out any of the demos or see what the big changes or new features are in 9.3, be sure to head out to our playlist and check out some of those demos. Also, if you joined us on any of our roadshows this year, you had the opportunity to actually work in the 9.3 environment through our hands-on labs that we hosted at the roadshow series. So if you weren't able to join us and you're interested in seeing what's new, be sure to check out the playlist and see some of the demos that we have out there for that. Education, this has been a hot topic this year, and we made the announcement that IBI is bringing education back to you guys. It will be around our new platform. We'll have courses in mainframe, data intelligence, and of course, analytics. Everything ranging from a 101 beginner level to your advanced and even your expert level. So we're excited about these coming out. On the evaluation form, we're still figuring out some last minute details, and we do want a little bit of feedback from you guys. So on the evaluation form, there's a question that we're asking of which topics you guys truly want to have some education around. Obviously, we're going to have the big ones, right? But if there's some other education topics that you want to learn more about, throw those in on that evaluation form, and so that we know that we can add those to the education curriculum and make sure that we have appropriate training available to you for that. So we're hoping that this education will be rolling out early 2025. We're almost complete with getting the platform and everything built out for you guys. So we're excited about being able to officially launch this and have you guys get in there and start all of your training, especially if you have new folks who are joining your your organization who need the education. So be on the lookout for that. Why am I not going? Oh, there we go. As I mentioned at the beginning of the call, if you haven't been out to our website and seen our remodel of it, be sure to check it out, ibi.com. Again, by now, you guys should not even be going to tibco.com anymore. Everything has been migrated over to ibi.com. This is our own domain. Out here, you can find all of our product documentation. There will be a link here that will take you to the new education and training portal. You can submit your support tickets out here on ibi.com. And then, of course, you will be able to find all the upcoming events, webinars, virtuals, our in-person events. That's where you can sign up and register for all of those. And then we also have our customer stories listed here. So if you're interested in seeing some case studies of what other organizations are doing, you are able to check that out here on the website. Speaking of events, again, out here on our website where you can register for all of the upcoming virtuals and in person. As we're closing out the year, we have finished up our road show. We finished up in New York in October. So the remaining of the year are just the virtuals. We have today's virtual user group, then we'll have the November Focus Friday, and then you'll have your 2 virtuals for December as well. We are in the planning stages for our 2025 summit event. We're looking at some different options. We've heard a lot of requests, and we are trying to honor a lot of those. So again, I'm going to go back and shamelessly plug for the survey at the end. We do have some questions on our survey pertaining to planning for 2025. So if you guys could please fill that out for us, that will help us navigate which direction we really want to go for the Summit Roadshows. Okay, so be sure to check that out at the end. The IBI community, if you guys weren't aware of it yet, or by now, we do have our own IBI community. We are officially off TIBCO community. This is IBI and IBI only. So be sure, if you haven't joined, it's complimentary. Head out there, join it, see what's going on out there. We've got the forums. Lots of Q&As. It's super easy, user-friendly to search for your IBI products. We have the different categories depending on which product and solution that you are using. And then, engage with the peer learning and learn from your peers. There's a lot of great conversations and threads going on. We have our subject expert posting articles out there as well. And there's even a couple of how-tos and some demos. So be sure to check out the new community if you have not joined already. And then, of course, we want you guys to stay connected with us. So if you are not receiving our monthly email, please let us know. This email, as I mentioned, goes out monthly. And it's another way just to keep you guys informed and up to date what's going on in the IBI world, events that are coming up, product launches, things that are just going on within the company. Any big announcements will all be in the newsletter. So again, this is going out monthly. So if you are not receiving it, please shoot me a note, let me know so we can check and see if you are on the list and see what is going on if you're not. And then last but not least, getting social with us. For those of you who are on social media, we'd love for you to give us a follow. We have a LinkedIn, X, and YouTube channel where we consistently post out there to let you guys know, again, updates going on with IBI, events, product announcements, things like that. So if you are on social, give us a follow. You can check us out on all 3 of these. And one more plug at the end, as I mentioned, guys, you will receive the evaluation link. So if you could please give us a quick, fill that out for us just quickly and give us your feedback. All right, so with that, I will stop sharing and I'm going to turn it over to Karishma and we will dive into some DSML. So Karishma, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Shay. All right, I'm going to just share my screen. Okay, Aiden, Shay, is my screen visible?
Yes, it is.
Okay, all right. So, yeah, good morning, everyone. I'm Karishma Khatge. I'm the Senior Product Manager, and I'm leading the Data Science and Machine Learning project area for WebFOCUS. I'm very excited today to share some of our latest features and enhancements that we brought out in our latest releases. So I'll walk you through some of those features. I have a short presentation to give an overview of what those features are, followed by a quick demo and a live demonstration of what these features look like. So to start with, we have some enhancements that we did with the Instant Insights. And the main one there is asynchronous processing of insights. So what this literally means is that you can generate insights, but you don't have to wait on the screen while the insight generation is in progress. So you can just continue your work within the app. The process of insight generation will keep running in the background. You'll get notified once the insights are generated, and you can go back and see the results of the generated insights. And we're also retaining the generated insights for a period of 30 days. So if you're going to work on the generated insights for the next couple of days, you don't have to generate it every time you're into a new session. You don't have to generate it every time. the results are retained and you can have it available instantly once you open Instant Insights. So that's one. And two other enhancements to Instant Insights is the ability to filter by fields and a tile view. Uh, like these enhancements were done keeping usability of the feature in mind. So sometimes when you have larger data sets, the number of insights that get generated could be in hundreds. And when you're generating insights, you could be focusing on a particular piece of important information. So it's difficult to skim through such large list of insights and find the insights that are relevant to you. So filter by fields allow you to actually select a particular field of interest, and then the generated insights will get shortlisted based on the field that you've selected, gives you a shorter set of insights to look at, gets you to the information that matters the most quickly. And the tile view is a more better representation and organization of the insights. You can switch between the traditional list view and the tile view, but the tile view gives you a more clear and a more organized view of insights. So I will quickly show you the demo for this. So yeah, basically in application directories, you can open up any data, right click, you have an option here to get insights. This is the quicker option. You can always go to the plus menu, explore data, select the data set and generate insights on it. Otherwise, if you're in application directories, you can get right to the insights from in here. So this particular data source has 3 fact tables. So if you see here now, I have 3 facts, and you can see that 2 facts here already have insights generated. I did those right before our demo. So I don't have to generate this again. I can just click on view and I'll be able to see the insights right away. And if I want to generate insights on the sales fact, I can just click on get insights, and you see this as in progress, right? So you can even close this window at this point, continue doing what you're working on. The process runs in the background and you'll get notified once the insights are generated and ready. There you go. So you see it's still in progress. So let's view one of the already generated insights that we have. You can click on the view button here. Okay. So in this view, the 2 new additions that we did were one, the tile view and the list view. So you see this switch here. You can switch between the tile view and the list view from here. And this drop down over here is the ability for you to filter by a field. So if you're looking at a bunch of insights, but all you are concerned about is one particular field, you can just select it from here, one or more particular field, you can select it from here, click apply, and you get a shorter list of insights to look at. So yeah, and you can go back to the list of fact tables. In here, you can see the status of the insight generation in progress. And once the insights are generated, you see that you can just click on view here and go back to the screen. This set of insights that are generated are retained for a period of 30 days. But at any given point, if you feel that you do not want to see the already generated version of the insights, want a fresher version of it, you can always click on reanalyze and it will start the generation of insight process again, and you'll get a fresh set of insights on the selected data sets. So yeah, that's about it for the enhancements that we have in Instant Insights at this point. Another addition that we have is for natural language query. We've added visualizations. So what we had so far is whenever you ask a question in NLQ, the response you would get was in a tabular format. Now we have added visualizations. That means you can visualize in certain chart types the response to a query. The chart types that we have available today are bar chart, line chart, area chart, vertical stacked bar, and then the table view is already there, which is the default view. More chart types will be coming up, but this is an initial version of visualizations that we have for NLQ. Whenever you ask a query, the system will either recommend one of the available chart types as the visualized response, or you can get the response in the default table format, but we have a chart switcher available which you can use to switch to a particular chart type. So let's have a quick look at how this works. Okay, so I have a data source here. I'm already in the Explore Data panel, and I'm on the Ask a Question feature. So the data set I have here is for maintenance data of certain machines. So I'm just going to ask a question on how the different failure types have occurred for all the defected machines that are out there. So say ask a question like, what is the distribution of failure type? Yeah, we have a column for failure type by the defected machines, or the defect target machines. And let's see what we get as a response here. So the default view that you get is the tabular format. So you see that there are different failure types of why the machine would have failed. It could be a random, or a heat dissipation, or there was no failure, or overstrain, power failure. And then the number of machines that failed because of this particular problem type. So I can also use this chart switcher that you see on the top here to view this in a bar chart format. So you see the y-axis showcases the failure types. You can hover over and see the count of the defected machines caused by that particular failure type. You can additionally also, run in a new window, save it to the workspace. All the existing NLQ features stay as is. You can go back to the default response provided by the system, clicking on this particular icon here. And you can always go move on and explore other chart types. Not all chart types mentioned here would be relevant to the question being asked or to the response that is being generated, but it's up to the flexibility of the user to explore which chart type is more suitable for the response and the question being asked, and then they can choose and move forward with it. So that's about it for the NLQ visualizations. Now, what we have next is the multi-class classification. So this is a new addition to our machine learning functions from the previous functions that we have. So what multi-class classification is that? It's a model which helps you predict a label where there are 3 or more possible categories. So we also have binary classification. So binary classification will help you predict between labels where there are 2 distinct categories, like a yes or no, or an attrition or a non-attrition of a customer. So it's always like a positive or a negative label. But in terms of multi-class classification, there's no positive or negative label. It's a set of categories, possible categories that need to be predicted. Like for example, if you're classifying emails, you can classify them into different classes like promotions, social, updates, spam, or it's in primary email, or could be used in any medical scenario, like based on certain set of symptoms, you want to classify the diagnosis as diabetes, hypertension, heart disease, or whatever. So there's a set of classes, possible categories that you want to classify. So I'll just show you the demo for this. So in reporting server, I already have a data source selected. I'm using the same data source that we just used for NLQ for failure type. So you saw that there were different categories of failures. It could be a power failure, it could be because of heat dissipation. So we have different categories of failures that caused a failure in the particular machine. So in the train models list, you will now see a new model with a new function, which is the multi-class classification. Once you select this, you can select a target. The target here that we are selecting is the failure type as the class that we want to predict. You can go ahead, select the predictors that you want to apply for the model to be trained on. Once you click apply, it will start training your model. Now, based on the size of the data source that you have, it might take from a couple of seconds to a couple of minutes for the model to get trained. To save time here, I already have a version where the results are generated. So I already have a trained model. So let's just look at it. So what you see here is the result. So in here you can see that the failure type and then the predicted values of the failure type column appended here to the data set. What we see here is a subset. So you see just 50 values in here right now. So you can see all the classes as no failures, but there would be different classes that would be accounted here when the model gets trained. And then you can look at additional information about multi-class classification. Like if you go to the evaluations tab, for example, right? Now in here, what you see is mainly the confusion matrix and the errors matrix. So what's a confusion matrix, right? It will show the number of correct and incorrect predictions based on each class across the predicted and actual values. See, you have the predicted and the actual values. So the diagonal line here, the values across the diagonal line are the number of correctly predicted values. And whatever is off diagonal are the incorrectly predicted values. So these are the mistakes done by the model. And the error matrix that you see here is actually similar to the confusion matrix. Sometimes these terms are interchangeably used as well. But what the error matrix focuses on is just the off-diagonal values. So if you see here, all the other values are just put as 0, and what we have focused more on are the error values, the off-diagonal values, to help us understand which particular predicted classes were incorrectly predicted, and basically gives us an idea on what areas need improvement at this point. So that's what you can evaluate from the confusion matrix and from the error matrix in here. Now you can also look at the feature importances. So what are feature importances is all the predictors that you have selected, how does each of the predictors impact the predicted class. So the values, currently all the values that you see here are positive coefficients. Now there's a possibility that there's a positive coefficient, and in some cases there would be a negative coefficient also. If you're looking at a positive coefficient here, that means that the chances of the predicted class happening increases because of this particular predictor. And if there's a negative one, it just means that if the negative coefficient increases, that means the probability of your outcome decreases. It's vice versa. So you can look at what factors in your data set impact the occurrence of that class more. Right? Again, like if you look at examples like customer segmentation, its feature importances will play a very crucial role, because you now know which of your parameters are affecting the predicted class the most. Moving on to the learning curve. So what learning curve shows you is how your model has learned across the data. So what you see on the x-axis here is the fraction of the data. So it goes from 0 to 1. You see 0.1, 0.3, 0.5 is the fraction of the data. If it's 0.5, that means your model has been trained on 50% of the data. And the y-axis is the F1 score, and it basically is the accuracy achieved at training the model at 50% of the data. So on, you'll have a learning curve evaluation that you can look at based on how the accuracy of the model increases when more data gets trained, or normally it should be an increasing curve, like you see here today. So the F1 scores actually just give you the information about how well your model is doing. So when there is an imbalance between classes, like one class is more common than the others, in that case, we do the class weighted score. So sometimes there's a possibility that one particular category in your class is the most frequent one. Like for example, in terms of this use case that we are looking at, the failure type, it's possible that a failure type of power failure was the most frequent class that resulted in the failure of the machine. But when a model is being trained, the frequency of this class should not create a bias in the model. And that's why you create a weighted score for all the classes. And that reduces the biasness of the model that's being trained. So these are all the details regarding the multi-class classification model that you can look at to evaluate the model. And based on the information you get here, you can make informed business decisions on the predicted classes. Moving on, I have one last feature to showcase, which is the machine learning functions tutorials. So we've introduced tutorials for you to help explore machine learning functions on some sample data sets. Not just some sample data sets, but we also have documentation which you can follow, and it gives you like a guided workflow, guided steps on how you can use the feature. So if you go to application directories, and you can just create any folder, like I've created a blank directory here, like a DSML tutorials. You can right click here, go to new tutorials, just select WebFOCUS data science demo here, click on create. It will process it for a few seconds because it is generating the tutorial files. Let's give it a moment to process the request. So we have different sets of tutorials addressing different use cases, and we've arranged it in a way that spans across all the different machine learning functions we have. Every tutorial that gets generated here comes with sample data set, comes with a PDF, which is like a tutorial documentation. It's a guided, documentation for you to follow steps in the machine learning UI. And then we also have some pre-trained models available on that data source. So you can just select the model and go to the run model workflow directly. Yeah. So you see here, the DSML tutorials directory is now populated with these tutorials. So we have the meteorological condition tutorial, we have a tutorial for forecasting, time series forecasting, employee attrition, credit card clients. So we have 5 different tutorials available here today. You can open up any tutorial folder, and what you see here are the data sets, and then what you see here are the pre-trained models. You can directly open up these files from here, go to the train models and run models workflow and explore these features. And if you have to get to the documentation, the tutorial documentation, you can actually view this HTML. So you see, we have all the documentation available here. You can click on the link tab, and there you have your tutorial guide to follow and use this particular tutorial. We hope this was useful, and I hope all these features and enhancements that we've done helps you utilize DSML features more efficiently. And that's about it. And at this point, I hand over to Aiden.
Perfect. I'll take control of Commissioner. Perfect. So couple things I want to accomplish with the sort of next half hour we get together. Again, my name is Aiden Ellsby. I'm a solutions engineer, like many of my colleagues on these user groups before me. Number one, in terms of what I want to accomplish, if you have seen my presentations before, or if you've taken a look at our DSML services, maybe you've been on one of our previous DSML user groups, I am hoping to give you some great new ideas on applications of this tool, especially on the dashboard and visualization side. But if this is your first time sort of seeing a proper demo of the data science functionality, first and foremost, super excited that you've joined us and super excited to have you. But I'm here to, let's say, pull back the covers a little bit on what Karishma just showed and give you, 10 minutes of the basics of what she's talking about, how do I get to that point where I can understand sort of, these new features that she's explaining, and, what the heck is the DSML services? What does it accomplish on a sort of a basic level? So if you've seen that before, some of it might be review, some of it might be new, but I do want to spend some time just going over some of those concepts before we take a look at something for everybody, which is, another demo exploring a new use case we haven't seen before on a virtual user group, with, again, hopefully the idea to inspire you about some new visualization types, some new ways to apply some of the different models that are available to you. On top of that, if you are interested in learning some of the more fundamental concepts of AI and WebFOCUS, data science and WebFOCUS, there's a whole plethora of great previous virtual user groups and other virtual events on our YouTube channel that I presented on before, like Krishna has shown before, that really have a great birth of knowledge, both for the fundamental concepts, but also covering a bunch of different use cases, right? I can only, cover one in a specific industry here, but we've done so many that chances are whatever industry you're in, whatever use case you're looking to tackle, we have something to cover it, to take a look at it in more detail. And I will make one last point on the last feature that Christmas showed. Those tutorials are going to be an amazing resource going forward to sort of get to an advanced level with this functionality in a step-by-step, handheld way with all the data provided for you. So I'm really excited we're adding that, because this will be on top of course, these virtual user groups, a great way to learn this functionality. But again, to cover my bases, and if this is the first time you're seeing DSML, this is for you. What am I talking about when I say DSML, data science, machine learning, AI tools, whatever within WebFOCUS? It's really an umbrella for various pieces of functionality that are unlocked by the installation of DSML services. Some of you, I'm sure, on this call already have that installed. Some of you maybe are looking at that install. We're really talking about, number one, the ability to train and test predictive models that help business analysts, or really anybody using your dashboards or reports, to answer questions like, and Chris went through some of these examples, but how likely a person is to churn? How can I sort of segment my customer base into relevant, product groups or marketing groups? How can I forecast my future demand, out 30 days by store or product or warehouse? How can I even enable predictive maintenance? And again, that was sort of one of the examples Krishna showed, predictive maintenance on, the repairs for equipment and machinery in an optimal way. Again, we can answer all of those kinds of questions through the WebFOCUS UI just within the reporting server. I don't need to know anything about Python or data science to get started using these tools. If I do want to dive into, some of the deeper pieces of functionality, it's available for data scientists as well. It's got all that power behind it. But if I want to just get started, I absolutely don't need to know how to code in Python. I don't need to know, data science. I just know the kind of question I want to answer and sort of how that maps to a predictive analytics use case. We'll dive into one concrete example on this session here of what these, we call them ML functions, look like. Again, that's that sort of bubble on the left there under DSML services. But I'll just reiterate one more time. If you are interested in different use cases, we have a plethora of previous user groups and other virtual events covering, again, a bunch of different use cases across industries. I'll just show you again. You've seen this from Karishma. I'll walk into some of the basic UI, but this is all done from the reporting server in the data flow view. If we do go back here, though, let's remember that this is just one component of the entirety of DSML services. There's a whole range of tools at your fingertips if you choose to get started with DSML. And the only other thing I want to clarify before we go any further is, what do I mean by should you choose to get started? DSML services is a separate install, right? It can be set up quickly using binaries on a Linux machine, or if you're familiar with containers or have a containerized strategy, it can be deployed that way as well on another environment, Windows or some other machine. I want to stress, though, that this is not a separate license. This is core WebFOCUS. If you can download WebFOCUS right now in eDelivery, you can download this and get started with this immediately. There's no barriers to entry there at all. I do want to be transparent, though. Again, just reiterate, the installation process itself is very simple, but there are some OS restrictions, at least for the binary installation on Linux Ubuntu. If you're looking to deploy it on a different OS or a different environment, we'll need to take a look at the containerized version. If that sounds a little bit intimidating, but you're still interested in getting this set up, please, reach out to me directly. I'll show my email right there on the bottom left. reach out to Shay, reach out to your account executive, to your solutions engineer. I'd be more than happy to walk each of you through, the installation process if you're looking for a little guidance, even sort of an initial background analysis of what kind of questions you can answer, what the environment setup looks like. Again, we're here to help, and I'm more than happy to do that with each of you. So if you're interested in that, again, we can set up an individual meeting with each of you to go through that information. All right, and with that out of the way, I'll just talk a little bit more about functionality before we hop into sort of the demo portion. Krishma, as you saw, went over that sort of training and testing of models. Again, that's done in a no-code way from the reporting server in the data flow view, but that's really just the tip of the iceberg. Krishma also covered NLQ, right? Natural language querying. If you've heard of, large language models, LLMs, chatbots, that's all sort of the same idea. But just like ML functions, we've made our sort of own spin on that core idea to make it as useful as possible to, real business analysts with real use cases, right? That's ultimately what drives all of our engineering efforts with DSML is what is our current customer base interested in, what would be useful to them, and that's really how we picked what models, or rather sort of types of questions you can answer using ML functions. It's what created our natural language query, or NLQ, again, which Krishma talked about the enhancements to. Just in case you weren't sure when you saw the NLQ piece, a brief overview of what NLQ actually is. It gives me the ability to ask plain English questions of my data, get back answers in the form of reports, but also visualizations. And again, Krishma showcased that. I can even take this, put it in a dashboard or a portal so my end user can perform this kind of self-service analysis on the fly. And we're constantly improving this tool. And as Krishma alluded to, there's still more in the works, but it's the easiest way, I would say, out of everything I'm showing you, to really take your dashboard from where it is now to, enhance with AI if I'm chasing buzzwords, but on a practical level, self-service enabled, super interactive. And I'll show you one more thing on a live demo here. I just want to give you a sort of perspective, if you haven't seen these tools before, of the UI Krishma just showed and what that looks like in practice on a very basic example. So as we go forward, you have that background. And again, if you want to dig in a little bit deeper, there's other user groups covering that. But I want to make sure everyone on this call is on the same page in terms of, what we're looking at when we train these models, when we test them, and what that interface looks like on a basic level. So Krishma had a churn example as well as a manufacturing example. I'm just going to use a basic churn example to keep this as simple as possible. What I want to showcase is within this UI, what Krishna was showing, all I'm doing is opening up a data set in the data flow view within the reporting server. We can see on the left here, once I have DSML services installed, I have the option to train and run models. All I need to do is sort of understand what kind of question I'm asking and then map that to one of these models. We saw the sort of model training process with Krishma, so I won't go over that again, just we are on limited time, and I do want to showcase the new sort of clustering use case that I've made for you guys. But on an overview level, classification, Krishma was talking about multinomial classification. That's any categorical question I have. So, is this person going to churn or not? Is this transaction fraudulent or not? Regression is the sort of numeric equivalent of that. What's the score of this product? What's the score of this account? How likely is this person to churn? That's another good example. Clustering, that's the third one here. That's what we're going to cover and dive into a little bit more deeply today. That's an unsupervised algorithm. So I'm just giving it my data and asking it to find patterns in the data, group every data point into a relevant group, sort of showcase latent characteristics that I might not have picked up as a human looking at this data. Same goes with the next two. They're sort of unsupervised, so I'm not necessarily telling it exactly the question I want to answer. Anomaly detection, same idea. Here's my data. Tell me what's anomalous. Tell me why it's anomalous. Assign an anomaly score to every single point in my data so I can get a picture of what that looks like from that perspective. Then last one, time series forecasting. That's pretty self-explanatory. That's any sort of temporal measure I want to forecast out into the future. If I'm looking at, again, in column one, demand for a warehouse for a product, let's forecast that out using this model. And the only other interface I want to show you guys, just before we move on to the rest of the demo, is this pop-up once I've selected a model that Karishma showcased here. All I'm doing here is selecting what I want the target to be. So in this case, it's going to be that risk column. 75% of our data here are customers that are okay. 25% of them are at risk or previously churned. All I'm doing here is selecting what kind of question I want to answer and what my target is. So what column I'm looking to make the predictive feature, right? Once I've trained this model, I can run it against new data that doesn't have a risk score associated with each customer, and then use this model to assign a risk score to them preemptively. Other than that, all Karishma did was, select the predictors we want the model to include. A good example here was, maybe I don't want it including the client number. That's just an arbitrary number that I don't want the model considering, but it will be able to filter out those kinds of things automatically, and sort of determine what's important and what's not. Actually, that was one thing Karishma showed, was the feature importances, right? So it's figured out what measures were important in making the prediction, what ones were, didn't contribute much, were not very impactful in the model's decision. Okay, so that's all I wanted to show you on the ML function side of thing. Again, this was the idea, just to give you a visualization of what we're talking about when we talk about these training models, and sort of pull back the curtains again a little bit on what Karishma showed in terms of the basic idea of what the UI you're looking at is telling us and how we interact with that. The only other thing I want to talk about before we head into the demo is there is, even more functionality under the DSML services umbrella under that same install. Richard talked about instant insights. Again, that's the ability to automatically generate visualizations while you're in Designer, or as she showed in the hub, just working on other things. It'll tell me automatically sort of correlations, properties of individual columns, even time series patterns with seasonality, outliers. It's a super cool feature for getting a deeper understanding of the data you're currently working with, but also even taking a first pass at a new data set. It's a great way for somebody that's looking to maybe train a model on this new data to understand, well, what are the properties of this data? What would be useful for a model? But it can be useful in general for BI as well. It doesn't need to necessarily be a data science application. And then last piece, I promised before we go to the demo, was the explainability part. So I think this is a really important addition to our ML functions, to our model training. When you create a model, it's important, very important, to understand, how it comes up with its predictions. We don't want this to be a black box. We don't want to, not understand what our model's doing and just, accept the output. Explainability really gives you a ton of information on how each result was generated, right? Sticking with our same example of churn here, what causes a person to be labeled as at risk? We can see on the left there in red, red means much lower than the average value, so low transaction counts, low revolving balance, a little bit lower than that. We have in blue higher months inactive. These all make sense as sort of indicators of an inactive account. But it goes even farther than that, right? I can actually perform what if analysis, right? If someone was labeled as at risk, what if we change the recent number of transactions over the last quarter? Let's recompute the model, see if that changes the prediction. So if I am, using this in a decision support capacity to inform me on marketing outreach or loan decisions, anything like that, it's good to know, well, how would my prediction change if I just tweak this one field? So it's really powerful, a really great way to sort of explore the properties of your model deeper and get a better understanding and build better trust of the kinds of predictions it's giving you. All right. And before I hop into the demo, I'll just pause, take a quick look at the questions, see if we have anything regarding this content. If not, again, if you've seen the DSML content before, this next section is sort of for you. This is exploring a new model we haven't explored on the virtual user groups before, which is the clustering, and then really focusing on that from a visualization dashboard side. How do you make something interesting? How do you communicate that kind of model results effectively? Or how do we even, dive into it on a deeper level from a data scientist perspective using the power of WebFOCUS? Okay, I'm not seeing any pressing questions here on the initial functionality, so I will hop into the demo piece. I will go on the next slide here. I do apologize. I need to rely on a backup recording for this demo, but it should be just as good. And it's even got some sort of highlighting of key areas to walk you through, the key aspects of the dashboard and sort of tell you what's important to look at. To set the scene for this use case, I'm a marketing analyst at a boutique store specializing in athletic wear, running hiking equipment. I operate globally through a business model that is almost exclusively online. That's sort of the background use case for this dashboard and for the model we're going to train on this data. Now you might ask, why this scenario? I mean, it is a, generally applicable retail use case. But first and foremost, the reason why I'm working with this data set is it is actually an open source, real data set from a company that will let us, really test the mettle of these models and of WebFOCUS in general against actual data. And then secondly, being an online retailer, this company is really looking to provide a personalized online experience, right? Have a close relationship and data-driven relationship as well behind each and every customer. Their objective actually when they released this data set to the public was to get a deeper understanding of their customers, right? How they could be categorized to provide sort of better, more personalized offers, recommendations, in general customer experience, and marketing, of course, with the ultimate goal of increasing their ROI on their marketing efforts. And we began our journey here on this sort of humble dashboard. It's really representing an analyst's first pass at something operational, capturing the demographic, geospatial, financial information of our data set, right? We've maybe collected data from a few different sources, we've merged and pivoted it in WebFOCUS, and now we've built out our initial analysis. Again, this can all be done in a matter of minutes when we're working with WebFOCUS. In this data set, we have sort of information on each online session over the last month. The first sort of fundamental visualization to take a look at is our analysis of the activity of each of these sessions. What page did the customer prospect begin their session on, and how did they come to, how close did they come to a conversion, right? Were they successfully converted? Did they stop on a certain page? Did they reach checkout? And as you saw, as I scroll across that, we can actually look at the split by the page they started on. So if they started on our blog page, how far did they get? If they started on the promotion page, how far did they get? Top right there, as you can see, I'm highlighting it on the video. We can look at the source that they visited the website from, right? Let's take a look at that split. We can see a lot of organic traffic. That's the middle bar there. We're seeing success. Oh, I don't want to go quite yet. Let me make sure I continue showing this. We can see a lot of organic traffic. We can see some success from our search engine optimization, but actually really impressively, the last column there, we're driving a lot of traffic through our social media campaigns, right, recently. So that's something we want to capitalize on. That's something we want to, see how we can really improve the efficacy of it, but also make sure we drive conversions from that engagement. Looking at outcomes, that's on the sort of bottom left. We can see about a 5% conversion rate, 2,000 sales, 500 upsells over the last month. Included in the original open source data set are some simple marketing measures, customer lifetime value, CLTV. That's the sort of estimated net profit from a certain customer over their entire engagement with our company. From a sort of lifetime value standpoint, which is up on the top left there, we have customers with about a combined CLTV of, I think, about 9 million making purchases with us, while new customers actually have an estimated worth of about 5 million if they've made, again, their first purchase with us recently. That's in the 5 million range. Although we operate globally as well, most of our business is coming from the US, so incorporating geoanalytics and all the power of WebFOCUS geoanalytics into our dashboard is really critical in understanding, where our customer base is located, how we can best tailor our content to, each of those customer bases. Same with offers, products, right, individually to those groups, but also to each customer. And then lastly, on the bottom here, as an online first business, we have a very diverse sort of customer base demographically, or serving the whole world, or serving a bunch of different demographic groups. This is actually looking at the average lifetime value by age. And as I'm highlighting there, you can see there's actually a pretty strong positive correlation between age and value, right? Our younger customers are providing less estimated lifetime value. And as we get to the older demographic, we're seeing an increase there. But that's a problem, really, right? As an athletic brand, young adults are probably one of our key demographics. Is this lower CLTV with, the 20-year-olds and 30-year-olds due to marketing, our website, our products, right? This is really a key questioning in determining how we can maximize value in targeted offers or on our campaigns going forward. So just a quick recap of this basic dashboard. Again, no sort of data science functionality embedded here. This was our first pass, really to get a feel for our data set, incorporate some operational intelligence. But as you remember, when this data set was released, the goal of this exercise was really to evaluate our current customer experience, marketing campaigns, offers, and really to understand our customers on a deeper level so we can customize really all the above, right? And enhance our current pipeline with as much as possible tailored, targeted outreach across all these demographics. The key to making this kind of outreach feasible is customer segmentation, which in this case we'll do through the clustering model. It's too difficult often to tackle this problem in broad strokes. So we divide our customer base into manageable groups based on their buying habits, demographics, location, their recent engagement, a bunch of different measures like that, right? That way we can see how effective advertisements are, offers are with each group individually, and then tailor the outreach we make for the unique properties of each segment, right, or each group. Traditionally, we can do this on a certain level with the information we already have, right? Maybe distinguish between new and registered customers, make a simple split by CLTV, by value, by age. But often, top performing companies are really combining this kind of traditional marketing intelligence with machine learning and data science to really take their customer insights to the next level and uncover latent characteristics. And by that I mean stuff that wouldn't be obvious to maybe a human looking at that data, looking to create some marketing measures. And again, really the goal of this is to provide invaluable data for our funnel analysis and any other sort of similar marketing exercise. I'll pause for a moment there just to let you sort of absorb that information. Again, this was nothing data science yet. This is just the background for the use case we're working on and sort of how we can then approach this problem using the tools, the DSML tools that exist in WebFOCUS. Okay, and so for part 2 here, we'll take a look at, I want to go to part 2, funnel analysis enhanced with clustering. Right. So if you're interested in what the model training process for this specific use case looks like, we have covered this in the past on other sessions, not on a virtual user group before. So if you look up on YouTube, just Aidan Ellesmere, my name, funnel analysis, you can get an even deeper look at how this model was trained, sort of what that looked like, and then technical sort of nitty-gritty of that. But I'm going to skip that for this session to really focus again on the visualization side. How do we communicate that data? How do we use the clustering model to sort of effectively glean insights on our customer base or any sort of segmentation we want to do in general? So you can see on the top left, it looks similar to the top left of the last dashboard's visualizations, but it's not split by source anymore. It's split by cluster. We've trained a clustering model on our data. And by that, I mean, we've just given it our data and told it to find patterns within this, split it according to whatever groups. This top left visualization, again, that's your typical funnel analysis. So from each page, where is everybody ending up? But it's split by these different clusters. You can see it's pretty even amongst the clusters for the most part in terms of where they're ending, except for the 5th cluster here, which I just entered. You can see there's a lot more people within this cluster ending on the returns page, right? So we'll have to dig into that a little bit deeper. Why is this fifth cluster that's been picked out by our model full of people that are, not converting, ending on the returns page? That's obviously something that we need to investigate and see how we can rectify. Scatter plot there on the right, that's just showing us customers by lifetime value and recency, again, colored by the cluster they've been assigned to. So the actual size of the bubble is how often they visit the website, right? So larger means they're a more active customer. This is really telling us clusters 1 and 2, which is sort of blue and green there. That represents our higher value customers. Or 5, that one where everybody's ending on the returns page. Again, that's in yellow there, but that's more something we haven't been able to capture the value of. You can see it's sort of low on that graph there. Some additional metrics sort of showcasing the value of each customer. So number 3, for example, that's not a large segment, but 1, 2, 4, and 5, those are all very much valuable sectors that we want to take a deeper look at. Again, there's some more geographic information, but in the interest of time, I do want to hop to the actual analysis of our model. So next page here, we're looking at what our model came up with and sort of how that compares to, I'm going to be honest with you, I've deceived you all a little bit up to this point. In our discussion of sort of clustering models, I sort of mentioned that in this case, it's an unsupervised algorithm, right? I'm not giving it any information. I don't have anything to really benchmark it against. But this model was actually given sort of manually curated labels from the original releasers of the data set. The model, of course, did not see any of these labels. It was just given the basic data. But what it does is it gives us the unique opportunity to really compare our model's results to the curated results that the dataset generators made, right? So human-made, let's assign them in this case to 4 categories. I don't want to go there yet. Let's just show the top of this dashboard. 4 categories that they've been manually assigned to: at risk, so everybody at risk of churn; loyalists, or our most valuable customers that really engage with us frequently; new customers, right? Those are ones that are not registered, don't shop with us on a regular basis; and then potential loyalists. That's our sort of 4th cluster there. And you can see on the bottom left the relative value of each of those groups, right? So potential loyalists and new customers are a huge portion of our customer base. But potential loyalists are really ones that they've identified as having sort of promising engagement and value. They're probably a good candidate for outreach to ultimately try to convert them to loyalists to that group. And so what this visualization on the right here is showing us is how the clusters our model generated map to those manual labels. Again, the model did not see the manual labels, it saw the raw data. But the dataset providers have also given us these human curated labels. I want to sort of walk through each of these results and tell you how it maps to each cluster. You can see about 80% of the at-risk, again, manually labeled as at-risk customers, have fallen into cluster 3. So that's great. Right below that, 73% of our loyalists have fallen into cluster 1. 88% of our new customers are either cluster 4 or cluster 5. And then on the last row there, about 64% of potential loyalists are captured under cluster 2, right? And there's a significant portion of them under 4 and 5 as well, which again makes sense. Potential loyalists are new customers by nature, so it makes sense that there's a little bit of overlap. So let's pause here and reflect on that a little bit. This model ran on 150,000 data points. This is, a medium-sized data set here that the company released. It took about, I think, 3 minutes to train. Again, it's unsupervised. I'm not telling what I'm looking for. And it managed to relatively accurately capture what was individually curated across each of those 150,000 rows, right? From whatever their, data set is, they've manually created this label, and we managed to replicate that with relative accuracy in just a few minutes using a clustering algorithm. Not only that, it's actually found some new potential patterns that were not labeled in that original data set, right? You can notice that manual labels, there's 4 of them, right? risk, loyalist, new, potential loyalist. We found five clusters. It looks like the split there between 4 and 5 is something new. They're both new customers, but there's some kind of different characteristic between them. And if you recall, we actually saw that when we looked at on the page before the initial cluster analysis. We saw that that cluster 5 has a ton of customers ending on the returns page, right? So we've already identified something that was not captured in the initial data set that can sort of give us additional insights into what these clusters represent and how we can more effectively perform outreach. Okay, so as we saw sort of in the previous visualization on the last page there, clusters 4 and 5, those account for the vast majority of our new customers. But what's the difference between them, right? We saw that number 5 often ends on the returns page. What's different between these groups? And that's what this sort of dashboard is exploring. What's the difference between cluster 4 and 5 and all of our clusters in general? How do we determine, how to rectify the issue of low engagement, high ending on the returns page for this last clusters, right? They match similar source ratios, organic, direct, SEO, to the broader data set. So there's not really a difference there, other than you can see on the 5th cluster, we have a disproportionate amount of traffic. Will give myself a couple extra seconds to talk to that. A disproportionate amount of traffic by value coming from social, right? That's the purple there. So this 5th cluster is actually a bunch of people coming into our store from a social media campaign, right? We saw on our very, very first data set that, our very first visualization, that we had great engagement from our social media, but it looks like those that are coming from those campaigns are not actually that engaged. They're ending on the returns page. There's something they don't like about the experience. There's something they don't like about our products. So one way we can sort of differentiate that is, again, by age. We can use this bottom visualization here to map out those 2 clusters, showing us by age, by cluster, the average session time for each of our customers. And I've written down here, and you can see that I've highlighted there, the median value for cluster 4 is around on that right yellow circle there, 44, whereas the mean age for cluster 5, that yellow circle on the left there, is only about 26 or about 30. So cluster 5 has found really a group of younger customers, which is exactly the demographic we're looking to sort of improve upon. Again, since we're an athletic brand, they're a key demographic. It's told us that they actually spend longer time each session before they make a purchase. And again, they're leaving on the returns page more often than any other groups. So just from that 3-minute model, we've been able to, number 1, replicate what was manually curated on 150,000 data points. We've been able to actually glean some additional information. We found this split between new customers where we have this older group that's behaving, similar to our potential loyalists, and this 5th group of younger customers coming through social media that are spending more time on our website, but are ultimately converting less and spending more time on our returns page. So, takeaways from this. How do we act on this information, right? This model is saved in the reporting server, so I can add it to any other flow. I can take, a look at new customers and assign them to those clusters. Every time I bring in new customer data, let's assign them to a cluster, right? Let's figure out what demographic group they belong to so we can take appropriate action there. We can even make decisions for our marketing outreach, for our email outreach, based off of if they're potential loyalists versus if they're cluster 5, if they're new young customers that respond differently to our outreach. But ultimately, we can take action on the insights we've gleaned from the model itself, right? There's something we need to rectify about this group of younger customers. Maybe it's a property of the social media campaigns we run, or maybe that's just a property of them being younger, using social media more. But ultimately, there's a lot of questions that this model has enabled us to ask and answer. And that's really the power of clustering. So I hope that, this gave you an overview of, number 1, what the clustering algorithm is about. That's sort of an important piece since we haven't covered that before, really. We've done a lot of sort of regression and classification in the past, but hopefully this gives you a good idea of how you can use clustering on your data into the future, because in general, for a lot of business use cases, that is the most important one, right? We don't often have neat labels for, this is a fraudulent transaction and this is not. Often it's just a big clump of data that doesn't have a label that we want to run against a model to get some, information on the patterns that exist within that data on. And then on the other side, hopefully you've got some inspiration on how kind of cluster information can be visualized. Of course, some of those visualizations are more specific to funnel analysis, especially that top left one. Really, that's just a different way to look at how people are running through the funnel. But in general, there's a lot of interesting ways, especially with color coding, that you can show off, these clusters, what's different between them, and really explain that to somebody that didn't train the model in a really concise way, in a way that's sort of understandable, just with the WebFOCUS background I have, not necessarily with data science knowledge or knowledge of, under the hood, how clustering works in general. Right, awesome. And that's what I wanted to show. I'll go take another look at Q&A, but I hope this was useful both to new to DSML people that are seeing this for the first time. I went over some of the basics. Again, there's a whole repertoire of previous sessions we've had that go over some of the more fundamental concepts. But if you were familiar with it already, if you're already working with it, hopefully you've got some new ideas of what clustering is useful for and how you can visualize that.
That was great. Thank you so much, Aiden and Krishma. I really enjoyed the presentation that you guys both gave, and I think everyone else did too. It does look like we do have 2 open questions right now. Can you guys answer either of those?
Absolutely. So top one here from Sergio, is PyServe available? From what version of WebFOCUS? So the initial beta version of DSML services was in 8.2.07, but we strongly recommend engaging with this once you're on 9.0 or greater. The PyServe is just, again, a configuration line to basically set up that connection between WebFOCUS and the DSML services. We're constantly making improvements. So of course, I'm sure Krishna would say, let's be on 9.3, let's be on the latest version, but you may not have the full sort of suite of functionality, but even on 9.0, there's some great features you can take advantage of if that's the version you're currently on and you sort of want to get started with DSML services. And it looks like the other one was answered offline, so I think we're good there.
Yes.
Thanks, Krishna.
Great. All right. I just want to give everyone an opportunity to answer or to ask any other questions that they have while we go over just a couple of closing items. Again, thank you all so much for joining us today, and thank you, Krishma and Aiden, for your presentations. It was extremely informative and interesting to see just what you can do in WebFOCUS with our DSML functionality. Just as a reminder, after the session closes, you will get the prompt to take a survey where you can leave feedback on the presentations today and on the topics, what future topics you'd like to see coming out in 2025. We really appreciate your feedback and appreciate your attendance today. Additionally, there will be a recording of this event, so if you have a coworker who didn't get to join the session, be sure to share that recording with them. If you aren't currently receiving our newsletter or information, please leave us a note in that survey and we'll make sure to get you added to the list. And looking back, yeah, it looks like we have a shout out just saying thank you all for the demo. So again, if you guys have any questions about any of this material, please leave those follow-ups in the survey, and we look forward to seeing you all next month. Thank you guys so much. Have a good one.